everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's video, which is on granny squares. One of my favourite things to talk about when it comes to crochet, and with very good reason, because there is so much variation. Today I'm going to show you 25 different granny square styles that you can make either as individual projects or combine into the hugest, coolest, craziest granny square Afghan ever. We're going to start with some traditional ones and then rapidly move into some really cool variations and end with some ultra modern stuff that you might not have seen before. You might have noticed that I sound slightly different today if you have seen this channel before. I do apologise, I have a wretched cold. I have been waiting to start filming again until it's gone. It's just not going, so I'm going to try ignoring it and powering through. But yes, I appear to be speaking in a slightly different register than normal, so sorry about that. So everything I show you today has a free pattern that is available on the Lucy Kate Crochet website. I'm going to link to them all down below. Go and check that out if you want to make any of them. But let's dive in! We have to start with your traditional granny square, and I've got an example here. This is a scarf I made, I think about 6 months ago when it was cold, and it is just the traditional granny square. So that's your circle in the middle that's got 4 prongs to it, if you will, each of 2 double crochets and a little chain gap in the corner that expands out potentially infinitely. Your classic granny square. Gotta be done. The next one is probably my absolute default way to make a granny square if I'm gonna do something with them. This is what I'm doing, and it's the solid granny square. So it is really similar to the one we just looked at, but those gaps are slightly more closed up. So the corner is more filled in, essentially. There's not a big gap in each corner, there's just a very small chain gap rather than a larger one. And what that enables you to do is use the granny squares for things that you might like to be a little bit more enclosed, like clothing or blankets, things like that. A lovely, again, classic way of doing it, the solid granny square. I actually think solid granny squares look really cool just all in one colour, and if you like expand out, say sort of 6 or 7 rounds, and then do each one in a different solid colour, very cool, works up really nicely. A really lovely twist on this is to use shell stitches as a granny square. Because of the shape of them, they evoke all kinds of sort of traditional, old-fashioned, if you will, ways of doing crochet. They're more akin to sort of the doilies and table covers that you might have seen in your sort of 1970s crochet books. It's totally beautiful, but you can add a more modern twist to it by changing up the colour combinations like you can see here. There are a few ways that you can join them together. You can make sort of a chain linked border between them, or you can just join them at the points around the edges of the shells. Next up, it's got to be the bullion stitch granny square. So there's 2 really nice ways that you can do this. You can do it in the traditional expanding granny square shape, which is worked in continuous outward rounds, or you can make up individual squares but using lines, rows of bullion stitches instead. Both ways look gorgeous, and in fact I think that you could make a really stunning blanket with a combination of the 2. Bean stitch is the next one. I really love this one, it's adorable. So you build this one up in rows rather than in rounds. So you have a foundation chain, I think of an odd number of stitches, and then you're just going to build up your rows from there individually, make up each of those squares, and then either crochet them or sew them together afterwards for that full effect. Got to talk bobble stitches next. Bobble stitch granny squares are so much fun. There are basically an infinite number of ways that we can implement bobble stitches into our granny squares, but we've got 4 really cool designs here. So the first one is a repeating rows of bobble stitches. Then you've got them in a sort of more random scattered effect for this one, which I really like. That would look so cool on like a sweater, wouldn't it? Then you've got one that looks much more the traditional granny square style. It's used the bobble stitch to make this almost sort of floral design, which is really gorgeous. And then of course you can use them to make motifs, which is so much fun. There's an example here of course, but literally in the same way that people make graphgans or sort of corner to corner with the patterns planned out, you can literally make any kind of design that you want here, as long as you've got the time to work it out. You can also use bobble stitches to make some really adorable shapes and designs. You've got to check out this one. So this is a snail that my friend Sarah made. Oh my god, it is one of the cutest things I think that we have on the site. I love it so much. And can you imagine if you did these but in granny square form, repeated them around with the little pictures of snails on? I mean, oh, so cute for like a kid's bedroom or my bedroom. V-stitches next, and they are a really sort of staple stitch for granny squares and for crocheting in general, of course, but there are so many different ways that you can use them. We've got one here that's very much more traditional granny square style, built out from the middle and expanded, and then several different ways of making repeating patterns with them as well. I love the idea of using all 4 of these completely randomly, maybe making sort of 16 of each, and then randomly deciding which order to put them together, maybe just scattering them on the floor, and then single crocheting a border around all of them. I think, oh, that would be beautiful. Linen stitch, again, such a variable one to use. I'm really excited about this one because I've not actually done this one myself before, so I'm gonna totally work up a few of these and see how they go. But again, there's variations here that you can use, some that look more like the traditional expanding granny square and some that are more linear shape, but both very cool. Waffle stitch. I both love and hate waffle stitch. I have the beginnings of a waffle stitch blanket in my box of work in progresses, and I do pick it up every now and again and I work a few rows of it, and it's so beautiful and so time consuming. So this is a gorgeous one, but it is one to really get your teeth into, and if you're anything like me with your sense of concentration, work on it a little bit at a time, pop it away, bring it out again. So whilst this is gorgeous granny squares, I think to make like an entire throw with them might potentially take me several years. I adore this one. I made this as a baby blanket for a friend of mine's adorable new baby. It wasn't as time consuming as it looks. I mean, obviously granny square blankets, you know, they do take a bit of time to work up when they're slightly more complicated patterns, but it was 100% worth it. I was so pleased with how it finished up. Nice impact. And this sort of way of doing the colour change on the sun shape as well just brings a bit of a different level to it. And now we've got some that are a bit more modern. We're gonna ease into it gently with the next one, which is this diagonal granny square. Oh, I love it so much. I can make these all day long, and I love how the colours here remind me of ice cream. Do they remind you of ice cream? They really remind me of ice cream. And then our final few, so bold and bright. So we've got these heart granny squares, so much fun. They look fantastic in your brightest possible colour combinations, but would also pare down a bit if you used more sort of muted pastel tones maybe, or maybe even sort of autumnal colours to get a really different impact, but still with that bold heart motif. Awesome for Valentine's Day, right? Totally the wrong time of year right now, but I thought. This circle pattern is a similar thing now, so it's a traditional granny square technique as well to use circles within it. However, the use of colour in this is really what causes that impact and gets it to stand out. And what you'll find really helps with sort of, if you want something to look a bit more in your face, use bright colours but put them with white or cream. It just brings them out that extra level. Finally, it's possibly one of my favourite ones, is the star. And how good would a blanket look with this star and the circle and the heart in it as well? So beautiful, right? So I hope those ideas were really interesting or helpful to you. You can find all of the patterns for them for free. They're just on the Lucy Kate Crochet website. Drop into the box below this in the description. There'll be all the links you need there. And send me a comment in the comments section below. I'll be there to chat with you, and I'll see you there. And hopefully next time I speak with you, I won't sound like this anymore. Happy crocheting.